If you've been following NASCAR lately, you might have noticed something feels a little different. It's not something obvious, but there's this subtle shift in the air that's hard to ignore. Alongside that, there's a growing sense of tension inside the garage, not just about who's fast or slow, but about what lies ahead. Big choices are looming, careers could be at turning points, and honestly, it feels like one of those moments we'll look back on and realize that's when things really started to change. What makes it even more intense is that there aren't just one but two major storylines unfolding right now, and they're connected in a way that makes everything even more unexpected. And believe me, this situation isn't just surprising, it makes you seriously wonder what's next for one of the sport's biggest names. Before getting into it, if you're someone who lives and breathes NASCAR, take a second to support the channel, hit that like button and consider subscribing. This is a fresh space aiming for 15,000 subscribers, focused on honest opinions, real reactions, and everything happening in NASCAR every single week. Now let's get into it because the first story is something that would have sounded unbelievable not too long ago. We're talking about Kyle Busch, the same Kyle Busch who dominated the sport for years, a two-time Cup Series champion who made winning seem almost routine. And yet here we are, looking at a 100-race winless streak. Just pause and think about that. When Busch made the move from Joe Gibbs Racing after the 2022 season to Richard Childress Racing, taking over the number 8 Chevrolet, it felt like the perfect fresh start. Early in 2023, it even looked like a brilliant decision. He grabbed a win at Auto Club Speedway and followed it up with 2 more victories by early summer. Suddenly, he was right back in the spotlight, looking like a serious championship contender again. It had all the signs of a comeback story in full motion. But after that surge, everything went quiet. No wins for the rest of 2023, none in 2024, none in 2025, and now even after 7 races into 2026, still nothing. That dry spell has now stretched to 100 races, the longest of his entire career. To really understand how significant that is, his previous longest winless run was only 36 races between 2016 and 2017. This is on a completely different scale, and it's not just about missing out on victories either. 7 races into this season, Busch finds himself sitting 24th in the standings, with his best finish being just 12th. For a driver of his caliber, that's a situation few would have ever expected. Not a single top 8 finish so far, and that's something he's never experienced at this stage in any of his previous 21 seasons, not even in his toughest years. That alone shows just how significant this decline has been. And when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it becomes even more concerning. His incredible 19-year streak of winning at least 1 race every season came to an end in 2024. That same year, he missed the playoffs for the first time since 2012. Then it happened again in 2025, and now, heading through 2026, he doesn't even look like a serious contender at the moment. This is where things start to feel a bit more intense, and honestly a little uncomfortable. Kyle Busch is currently in a contract year with Richard Childress Racing, and he turns 41 in May. So now the conversation isn't just about whether he can return to victory lane. It's about whether he'll even still have a seat in the Cup Series by 2027. Age by itself isn't the issue here. We've seen plenty of drivers stay competitive well into their 40s. The real concern is performance. On top of that, Richard Childress Racing hasn't exactly been matching the pace of the top-tier teams for quite some time, even before Busch joined. So yes, there's a fair argument that it's not entirely on him. But at the same time, NASCAR is a sport that moves quickly and it doesn't wait around for anyone. With this year's silly season expected to be far more active than 2025, when only a couple of full-time rides changed, things are about to get serious in a hurry. That leads to the big question, is Kyle Busch going to stay stuck at 63 career wins, or is there still another chapter waiting to unfold somewhere else? We might start seeing clues very soon. The next race is the Food City 500 at Bristol Motor Speedway, a track where Busch has dominated in the past, winning 8 times on the concrete surface. This is one of his strongest venues, and if there's anywhere he can turn things around, it's here. But make no mistake, the pressure right now is enormous. Now shifting to the second part of this situation, things start to get even more intriguing and honestly a bit unpredictable. If Kyle Busch does part ways with Richard Childress Racing after 2026, where could he realistically land? There are a few possible paths being discussed. The first is staying exactly where he is. It might not seem likely given everything happening, but it's not completely out of the question. Even during this rough stretch, there have been small signs of potential, and if the team can find some consistency, he might decide to give it another shot for a year. Still, it feels like a tough bet. The second option is Spire Motorsports, and this one actually makes a lot of sense. They've already committed long-term to Carson Hocevar in the number 77 Chevrolet, but beyond that, their lineup isn't fully locked in, leaving room for a move that could shake things up. Michael McDowell is also 41, and Daniel Suarez, who joined from Trackhouse Racing to replace Justin Haley, is pretty much in a prove-yourself phase right now, especially considering he's only managed 2 wins despite racing for major teams like Joe Gibbs Racing and Stewart Haas Racing. Now here's where things start to connect in an interesting way. Kyle Busch sold Kyle Busch Motorsports to Spire back in 2023, and since then he's already been competing and even winning races with them in the Truck Series. So there's already a relationship there, a level of comfort and understanding. Add in the fact that his son, Brexton Busch, is climbing through the ranks, and suddenly this starts to look like something bigger, possibly even a long-term family-driven move. The third option might sound a bit wild at first, but in NASCAR you can't really rule anything out: Hendrick Motorsports. Yes, that Hendrick Motorsports, the powerhouse team owned by Rick Hendrick, and the very place where Kyle Busch began his Cup career over 2 decades ago. Now this scenario would likely depend on what happens with Alex Bowman in the number 48 Chevrolet. Bowman has faced some struggles and has also missed time in recent seasons due to health-related issues. If Hendrick decides to shake things up, could they lean toward bringing in an experienced veteran instead of developing a younger driver? Especially if a rising talent like Connor Zilisch from Trackhouse Racing isn't available. It's also worth noting that HendrickCars.com has already backed Kyle Busch in Truck Series races with Spire, so there's at least some level of existing connection. It may not be the most likely outcome, but it's far from impossible. Then there's the fourth option, Legacy Motor Club, and this one brings an entirely different angle into play because of its ties with Toyota. A reunion with Toyota through 23XI Racing, co-owned by Denny Hamlin, would have seemed like a perfect fit at one point, but that opportunity appears to be off the table now. The team is sticking with Riley Herbst for 2026, and Corey Heim is expected to step into that role in 2027. However, Legacy Motor Club, supported by Toyota and led by legends Jimmy Johnson and Richard Petty, is reportedly planning to expand to 3 cars by 2027. So if a return alongside Denny Hamlin isn't happening, could Kyle Busch end up aligning with Johnson and Petty instead? That's the kind of storyline that would instantly grab everyone's attention. The fifth and final possibility is stepping away from the Cup Series altogether. Not a full retirement from racing, because Kyle Busch has made it clear he still has his eyes set on winning a Truck Series championship, but potentially shifting his main focus away from the Cup level. If that happens, he would immediately become one of the top contenders in the Truck Series, especially with a team like Spire Motorsports, but realistically, that's probably not what most fans want to see, and it might not be what Kyle wants either, because even now it still feels like there's something left in him. The real question is whether he can find the right opportunity before time, and the sport itself, moves forward without him. At the end of the day, this isn't just about a long stretch without wins, it's about what comes next for one of the defining drivers of this era. Are we witnessing the early stages of a decline, or is this simply the build-up to one final comeback story? As a fan, it's hard to count Kyle Busch out completely, but at the same time, you can't ignore that things feel different this time. Now it's your turn. What do you think happens next? Does he stay with Richard Childress Racing, make a move to a team like Spire Motorsports or Hendrick Motorsports, maybe even join Legacy Motor Club, or are we actually getting closer to the end of his Cup journey? Share your thoughts. Let's get the conversation going. And if you enjoy this kind of honest, no-filter NASCAR discussion, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to NASCAR Nation Report.